Hi, this is Christine Marfut, and I'm in Longboat Key. I'm at the municipal building, and I would like to introduce, what is your name, sir?
My name is Robert Smith.
Okay, and I think in this case, Robert Smith is just the person to help us, and Longboat Key has messed with the wrong man. Would you like to tell us some of your background?
Yes, I'm a former city health inspector of the city of Akron. I have a certification, had a certification in 1975 as a health sanitarian. I have worked as a city planner in the city of Akron, and I have also worked as a zoning consultant, housing consultant. I've testified as an expert in various legal proceedings. I've been a real estate broker since 1990, a real estate agent since 1978 in Ohio. I own a house in Longboat, and unfortunately I had the problem of an accusation being made by a code enforcement agent that my grass exceeded the 12-inch maximum height. And I attended a code enforcement hearing last week, and it was brought up that they charge $110 an hour for expert fees. Well, for administrative fees.
And this is for talking to a code enforcement officer, a public employee.
Yes, and that led me to doing a public documents request under Florida law of Longboat Key and finding out that the employee, a gentleman named Ben Bailey, actually makes $19.37 an hour. $19.38 an hour, and he's a probationary employee to boot.
And he has not been trained according to you yet, or he was just recently trained in...
coincidentally, Mr. Bailey did not show up for the code enforcement hearing. And that led me to find out the reason why, and I saw in one of the town newspapers that Mr. Bailey was at a training session, so said the town. And so I inquired into what training session he was in, and I found out that the day that I notified him in the town of Longboat that I would be coming from Ohio to Longboat Key and would be at the meeting on the 11th of October, Mr. Bailey booked a training session that would last 5 days long in Tampa so that he may receive the basic fundamental certification for code enforcement.
So Mr. Bailey was not present when they asked you to be present?
That is correct.
And therefore nobody could make statements in a quasi-judicial format for someone who was not here.
Well, that didn't stop them from trying, though. They produced another code enforcement agent or officer, Heidi McHale, and Miss McHale then, who was also doing the presentation of the case and also doing the notarizing the documents for Mr. Bailey, began to present the case to the board, and then she also stated to the board that she was going to be testifying.
To something of which she had no personal knowledge.
That's correct, no personal knowledge, and she was going to be testifying to statements that made by Mr. Bailey to her, and she was going to be testifying and not allowing me to do cross-examination of the facts with Mr. Bailey.
And there was another gentleman, I believe I attended your hearing, and he protested that he was not made aware of any fees to talk to public employees prior to being billed for 9 hours, which turned out to be $990. Do you have a comment about that?
Yes, I sat through that, and I was quite amazed because he was informed by the head of the building and code enforcement section, a lady named Monica Simpson, came to the camera and said that that this gentleman has a problem because she's never billed for her time, and she said what is on the table right now is just a good faith estimate. Then that just caused me more anguish because how can you have findings of fact and conclusions of law based on good faith estimates? These actual costs that they're claiming have to be able to be verified, and the problem we have is that Longboat Key, I've been doing documents requests now for the past several days. They have not been able to produce a cost breakdown on this $110 an hour. It is a number that they just pulled out of the air somewhere. Today, after threatening to notify the Justice Department and Attorney General's office for failure to produce public documents, citing the public document law that they can be criminally prosecuted for failure to produce these documents, they finally, and their attorney sending me a threat letter that I can't talk to government officials. After this, and me notifying them of the potential of bringing in the Justice Department, only then did they relent and say that they are now looking on microfilm for those records, which I find just a total obstruction of trying to get at the real meat of the matter. If you're charging somebody $110, the code calls for that board to go over the cost in the meeting, not pull some number out of the air and all of a sudden start assessing people then leaving their properties, which is the case in this situation. Not my particular situation. I haven't leaned my property yet. I only have 1,000 square foot yard, and my grass didn't exceed the height. The pictures that they took in my situation did not show the bottom of the tape. It showed him holding up a tape and only the top of the tape. And it's the oldest trick in the book, and something that somebody who's trying to get over on you would use.
And also, just to interrupt you, I noticed, I don't know if you did, that almost all grass photos were taken from a snail's eye view, where
Yes.
it made it look like everything was a jungle.
What I figure he probably did is had the camera on a time delay, sitting on the ground with something propping it up in the back, and having the angle, because he was holding the tape. And of course, we couldn't get at those things because we couldn't cross-examine Mr. Bailey. And the board, what they did, instead of chastising Mr. Bailey for not being there or calling him on the carpet, they take a continuance because Miss McHale was getting nailed to the wall. She couldn't respond to any type of questioning because I was not going to question her. She is not a witness in this case, and she has no knowledge of this case.
Let me interrupt you. You saw some people who did not show up. Were there continuances on their behalf?
No.
No. Do you think if you had not shown up as Mr. Bailey had not,
Well,
would you have had a continuance?
It's an interesting point that you raised. In their packet that they put together for the board, meaning the code enforcement officers, they mention in that packet that due process has been met. They make a judgment call that's reserved for a court of law that due process has been met. And they're informing the board in writing that due process has been met in my case, when in fact due process hasn't been met because Mr. Bailey's nowhere to be found. Mr. Bailey's scheduling training classes, so he did not have to be there, and only after he was notified that I was going to be there did he then schedule his training class.
And I remember something that struck me funny, and some people were admonished for chortling. Someone mentioned that the $110 an hour for a public employee already being paid a salary was a lowball estimate. Do you have a comment to that?
Well, it sticks in your craw. We're all taxpayers. We all know what it's like to have to work for a living and accumulate resources and buy things and pay taxes. And when you have the people that you're supporting in a lavish environment such as Longboat Key's City Hall where we're at today, knowing that the town manager is making $250,000 a year and that he's getting $80,000 contributed to his pension and he gets 10 weeks vacation, you start asking, a beautiful town with 7,000 full-time people like Longboat Key, what the heck is going on here? And then to hear stories about the law director making $1 million for representing Longboat Key. I haven't researched those records, but I'm definitely going to take a look at that